That third failure in a row, did you think, I need to pack this in?
Never.
Why not?
I don't ever give up. I mean, I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated.
Hey, in this video, we're gonna hear from the man himself, Elon Musk. Wow, he's done a lot. He's one of the richest guys in the world with a net worth of $191 billion. In second place right now. He also founded the Tesla Motor Company. He founded Neuralink. He also founded the Boring Company. And not to mention SpaceX, a rocket company. He also is the co-founder of PayPal and OpenAI. Not to mention the fact that he has 10 kids and 3 wives. Not his actual wives or kids, but you know what I'm saying. Let's listen to what Elon Musk has to say.
Just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100 hour weeks every week.
Gosh,
and
that's
then
a lot of work.
all those things improve the odds of success.
Okay.
I mean, if other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that in 1 year you will achieve what they achieve. You will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve.
You need to work, depending upon how well you want to do, and particularly if you're starting a company, you need to work super hard. So what does super hard mean? Well, when my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. And we showered at the YMCA, and we're so hot up we had just one computer. So the website was up during the day, and I was coding at night, 7 days a week, all the time. And I sort of briefly had a girlfriend in that period, and in order to be with me, she had to sleep in the office. So work hard, like every waking hour. That's the thing I would say particularly if you're starting a company. And I mean, if you do simple math, say like, okay, if somebody else is working 50 hours and you're working 100, you'll get twice as much done in the course of a year as the other company.
Have a high pain threshold. That's there's a friend of mine who's got a good saying, which is that starting a company is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. Okay, that's generally what happens, because when you first start a company, there's lots of optimism and things are great, and then so happiness at first is high. Then you encounter all sorts of issues, and happiness will steadily decline, and then you'll go through a whole world of hurt. And then eventually, if you succeed, and in most cases you will not succeed, and Tesla almost didn't succeed, came very close to failure. Then if you succeed, then after a long time you will finally get back to happiness.
People want to be more like you.
Really?
And for the fate of humankind, I think it would be great to have more Elon Musks. So what do we need to do to become more like Elon?
I don't know if I think it maybe sounds better than it is. Honestly, like there's a friend of mine who's got a great saying about creating a company, which is trying to build a company and have it succeed is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. So, I mean, what tends to happen is it's sort of quite exciting for the first several months of starting a company, and then reality sets in. Things don't go as well as planned. Customers aren't signing up. The technology or the product isn't working as well as you thought. And then that can sometimes be compounded by a recession, and it can be very, very painful for several years. So I think, frankly, starting a company, I would advise people to have a high pain tolerance.
People do not think critically enough. I mean, critical thinking is a skill in short supply, where people take too many things they assume too many things to be true without sufficient basis in that belief. So it's very important that people closely analyze what is supposed to be true, and try to build up, try to say, let's analyze things from first principles, not by analogy or not by convention. If you assume things are true by convention, which is actually what most people do, then it's difficult to gain insight into how things can be bettered. So, in any argument or any sort of train of thinking, you want to make sure that the underlying premises are valid and applicable, and then in reaching a conclusion, that the conclusion you're reaching is necessarily driven by the underlying premises and the interconnection between those premises. That may seem like a really simple thing to say, but most people don't do that. So it's really the foundation of rational thought.
If somebody is doing something that is useful to the rest of society, I think that's a good thing. Like, it doesn't have to change the world. Like, if you're doing something that has high value to people, and frankly, even if it's like just a little game, or some improvement in photo sharing or something, if it has a small amount of good for a large number of people, I think that's fine. Like, stuff doesn't need to change the world just to be good.
People tend to overweight risk on a personal level. It's one thing if you've got, a mortgage to pay and kids to support, and that if you were to deviate from your job, how are you going to feed your family and pay the rent? And okay, that's understandable. But let's say you're young and you're just coming out of college or coming out of high school or whatever. What do you risk? You're not going to starve. I mean, right. It's really certainly not in any kind of modern economy. It's so easy to earn enough money just to live somewhere and eat food. You could, very easy to do. So I don't know what are they afraid of? They're mostly afraid of failure, I think, But people should be less risk averse when there's not much at risk. You got to make sure that whatever you're doing is a great product or service. It has to be really great. And I go back to what I was saying earlier, where if you're a new company, unless it's like some new industry or new market if it's an untapped market, then you have more ability to. The standard is lower for your product or service. But if you're entering anything where there's an existing marketplace against large entrenched competitors, then your product or service needs to be much better than theirs. It can't be a little bit better, because then you put yourself in the shoes of the consumer, and they say, why would you buy it as a consumer? You're always going to buy the trusted brand unless there's a big difference. So a lot of times, entrepreneur will come up with something which is only slightly better. And it can't just be slightly better. It's got to be a lot better.
If you're creating a company or if you're joining a company, the most important thing is to attract great people. So either join a group that's amazing, that you really respect, or if you're building a company, you've got to gather great people. All a company is a group of people that have gathered together to create a product or service. And so depending upon how talented and hardworking that group is, and the degree to which they are focused cohesively in a good direction, that will determine the success of the company. So do everything you can to gather great people if you're creating a company.
Constantly seek criticism.
Yeah.
A well thought out critique of whatever you're doing is as valuable as gold. And you should seek that from everyone you can, but particularly your friends. Usually your friends know what's wrong, but they don't want to tell you because they don't want to hurt you.
So lift you up, so you're.
Yeah. So they'll say, "Oh, I want to encourage my friend, so I'm not going to tell him what I think is wrong with this product."
Yeah.
It doesn't mean your friends are right, but very often they are right, and you at least want to listen very carefully to what they say. And to everyone, you're looking for. Basically, you should take the approach that you're wrong. that you, the entrepreneur, are wrong. Your goal is to be less wrong.
People who've been in the rocketry business for decades,
Yeah.
who say about you that you don't know what you don't know.
Well, I suppose that's true of anyone. How can anyone know what they don't know? But
When critics say you can't do this, your answer to them is,
we've done it.
you know, there are American heroes who don't like this idea. Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan have both testified against commercial spaceflight and the way that you're developing it, and I wonder what you think of that.
I was very sad to see that, because those guys are, those guys are heroes of mine, so it's really tough. I wish they would come and visit and see the hardware that we're doing here. And I think that would change their mind.
They inspired you to do this, didn't they?
Yes.
And to see them casting stones in your direction.
It's difficult.
Did you expect them to cheer you on?
So they're hoping they would.
What are you trying to prove to them?
What I'm trying to do is to make a significant difference in spaceflight and help make spaceflight accessible to almost anyone. And I would hope for as much support in that direction as we can receive.
Don't just follow the trend. So you may have heard me say that it's good to think in terms of the physics approach of first principles, which is, rather than reasoning by analogy, you boil things down to the most fundamental truths you can imagine, and you reason up from there. And this is a good way to figure out if something really makes sense, or if it's just what everybody else is doing. It's hard to think that way. You can't think that way about everything. It takes a lot of effort. But if you're trying to do something new, it's the best way to think. And that framework was developed by physicists to figure out counterintuitive things like quantum mechanics. So it's really a powerful method.
Motivational tips for daily success. Hey, we all know that motivation is super, super important, and we all have questions, but the biggest question is, how do you get motivated? And more importantly, once you get motivated, how do you stay motivated? That's even more important. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do exactly that. Be motivated, stay motivated, and get more accomplished. Let's talk about motivation, what it is, and how it's going to help you out in your business and in your life. Number one, and I'm going to give you each of these problems that we run into, but the number one problem with motivation is the fear of failure. I mean, that's really one of the biggest ones there are out there. And if you think about some of these industries, oh my God, look, just take technology, okay? If you want to jump in technology and come up with something cool and neat, there's so much competition out there. It's so scary. And that fear of failure is the thing that stops most people. You know, they may have a great idea, they may have great motivation and all that, but they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to spend a lot of time on something only to find out that it's not going to work. But unfortunately, you have to overcome that one. You know, that's not one I can fix. Fear of failure is something that everybody has, but here's the truth about failure. The more times you fail, the closer you are to success. Now, a lot of people don't want to go through that failure, but you know, by not trying anything at all, by not doing anything, you are automatically a failure because you haven't done anything. Okay, and I don't want to call you a failure, but if you're not trying, basically, you're choosing to fail when you could have possibly succeeded. So number one is fear of failure. You got to get over that. You know, Mark Cuban of Shark Tank says that, you know, he knows he's going to encounter some failures. Now, he's a billionaire, and he says that, you know, sometimes I'll get 19 out of 20 successes, but that one failure really bothers me. He said recently that he had lost $1.5 million on one of his deals, and it was still driving him crazy. So no matter what level you get to, yeah, it's going to bother you, but you just got to understand that going through the process over and over again is going to gain you some successes. And it doesn't take too many successes to make up for a lot of failures. I know that from products, I know that from marketing, I know that from ads, because every single one of those areas I've had failures in, but I've also had successes in all those areas too. Number 2, do what you're passionate about. That is a big thing, okay? If you are working on a project, if you're working on products or services or whatever, and it's an area that you really enjoy, that's going to be one thing that's going to keep you more motivated. I know my wife is into animal rescue and she's into dogs and dog training, and she gets frustrated, right? And I get frustrated in what I work in too, but the thing that keeps her motivated is she knows that if she keeps trying and she keeps putting out good content, she's going to help some people. She's going to help dog owners. She's going to help dogs. And that love for that particular niche is the thing that's going to keep her going and the reason she'll be successful. So try to pick something that you're passionate about, something you care about, something that you can actually make a change in the world about, and you'll find that that's going to bring you the motivation to do what you need to do. Now, the next thing I'll tell you is passion is great. I think it's awesome. Not all passions are a business, okay? So if you have a particular passion about a particular thing and you want to make money doing it, make sure you find somebody out there that's making money doing it, okay? If there's nobody making money off your passion, whatever it may be, then it may not be something that you want to do. Unfortunately, you may have to keep those things a hobby and find something else. Number 3, keep affirmations where you can see them, okay? Now, an affirmation, what is it? It's a goal you may have. It's something you may want to achieve. It's maybe a trip you want to take. Right now, there's a ring light right in front of me. Okay, you can't see it because you're on the other side of the camera. But on that ring light, there's a little sticker on the bottom, and it's got one of the affirmations that myself and my wife share, and that's something that we're really going after. So every time I do a video, I have to see it. It's right there, right there. See that? You can't see it. It's there, okay? And it's on our computers. It's in several different areas so that as we're working through the day, if we get a little discouraged or we get a little bit down or we get tired or whatever, we look at that affirmation and go, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing this. That's the reason I'm doing this. That's why I've had to sit here for 3 hours and type. That's why I've had to, you know, do this sales page over and over again. It's because of that little affirmation there. And if you have that, that will help you get motivated and stay motivated. Number 4, leverage the power of rejection. Okay, now that sounds crazy, but I want to tell you a story real quick. On June 26, 2008, Michael Seibel introduced to 7 prominent investors in Silicon Valley. He was attempting to raise $150,000 at a $1.5 million valuation for a little company called Airbnb. This means for $150,000 you could have had 10% of Airbnb. Now, the end of that story, today Airbnb is worth $30 billion. Not a bad return on your investment. Now, number 5 is surround yourself with successful people. I don't care how motivated you are. I don't care how hard you work. I don't care what your morals are. If you have negative people around you, if you have lazy people around you, that's going to rub off on you. You don't want that. You need to go out and find successful people. Now, people will say, well, how do I do that? How do I find successful people? How am I going to get around successful people? And I would say it's the same thing as if you want to pick a mate, okay? If you want to pick the right person and you have an ideal person, you want somebody who's clean and neat and intelligent and works hard and, you know, does all the right things and is honest, then that's what you've got to become, and that's what you're going to attract. So I see so many people who are trying to meet the love of their life, you know, and they're overweight and they don't exercise and they eat wrong and they're lazy, and, you know, they go to happy hour and hang out there and they expect to meet this perfect person who has all these good attributes. It's not going to happen. The first thing you need to change is yourself. If people see you as a successful person, if people see you working hard and treating other people right and being honest and putting out good content and being consistent with what you do, that's the kind of people that are going to want to be around you, because they're looking for the same kind of people, right? We're all in this together, and we're going to actually match up with people who are like ourselves. So make sure you surround yourself with successful people, and you can do that through meetup groups, you can do that through conventions, you can do that through all kinds of means, online videos, contacting people. But the point is, you need to be what you want to attract. Number 6, never feel sorry for yourself. Okay, that's hard to do, but it really isn't hard to do once you learn the talent of this. Things are going to go wrong. Every single person's life, there's things that go wrong. If you stop and you feel sorry for yourself for 5 minutes, Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank says 5 minutes of feeling sorry for yourself can destroy weeks of success. That's crazy, right? So when something bad happens to you, you never know what's going to be around the corner. And this has happened to me so many times in life. It's happened to myself and my wife, and you know, you think it's just a horrible thing, and oh my gosh, how could this happen to us? And it actually opened up a door for something else. So I would actually say when something bad happens, get excited, because something good's going to come of that. And I don't know what it is, I don't know where it's coming from, but I know your reaction to it can make all the difference in the world. If you sit back and you just feel sorry for yourself and oh, woe is me, then of course that's probably what you're going to attract, is more of that stuff. You know, and I hear people talk like that, and I know that kind of person, because they're going to say, no matter what I do, this happens, or every time I do this, this happens. It seems like I keep attracting bad luck. And they're actually telling themselves these things. They're actually telling themselves. And you know, well, as a kid, I didn't participate much in sports, and I would tell myself, well, I'm probably not going to be good at this, I probably won't be the fastest runner, I probably won't do this. But as a grown-up, I go to the gym and I have a different look at it now. I look at it and say, well, I could beat that person, and I could beat that person, I could lift more weight here, and I could run faster or bike faster than that person there. And I tell myself these things, and guess what? Those things actually come to light, and they actually happen because I've changed my outlook on those things. Number 7 is look for inspiration. Oh my gosh, you know, with the internet now, there are so many inspiring stories out there, people who overcame things. A number of years ago, I got to meet a gentleman named Sean Stevenson, and his whole goal in life was to wipe out insecurities for people. Now this is a picture right here of me and Sean Stevenson, and as you can see, he was confined to a wheelchair. He couldn't even go to the bathroom by himself. He had something that was called brittle bone disease, and he recently died last year. And he was one of the most inspirational people I think I've ever met, because of what he accomplished with all of the obstacles he had. Now as you look at him, I don't know what your obstacles are, I don't know what your abilities are. I know his were very, very limited, and he still overcame them. So you know, what crutches are you sitting on right now? What limitations are you know, kind of saying, well, I can't because of this? Stop that. Look for somebody inspiring, look for somebody who's achieved something that you want to achieve, and concentrate on those people, not on the things that you have that are limiting you. Number 8, don't obsess over your vision. Okay, so it's good to have a vision, it's something you want to do, but don't spend that much time on it. In a recent interview with Elon Musk, he said that he only spends about 30 minutes a week on his SpaceX project of colonizing Mars. So it's on the table and he spends time on it, but he doesn't obsess over it. He says he spends most of his time working on things that he can get immediate results on right now. Number 9, be grateful. You know, when people say, you know, how did you do this, how did you accomplish this, most of the time I'll tell them it's because I was grateful for what I had. I remember not having much. I remember not living in a nice house. I remember not being able to go to nice restaurants, or you know, have good family relations, or whatever it is, and now I really appreciate them. And if you can get that appreciation, that will help you so very much towards staying motivated. Gary Vaynerchuk says, if you want to fuel the win, be grateful. That's what you got to do. If you want to fuel the win, be grateful. So if you're not grateful for what you have, and I don't care what you have, I promise you it's more than somebody else. There's always somebody who has less than you. And I guess when you get down to that last person who has the very least in the world, there's the dead people. Okay, so even he or she has more than the dead people. Okay, so if you're listening to this, you're alive. Okay, so that's where you can start off being grateful, because whatever situation you're in, whatever problems you're having, you can change. Number 10, this is crazy, forget about motivation. Forget about it. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is so many people sit around and they go, yeah, when I get motivated to do that, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to kick butt. Okay, motivation doesn't work that way. Motivation is not based on you feeling like you want to do something. Success is fuel motivation, and I'll give you an example about that. If you were to go out and you were a salesperson and you make 10 sales calls and 8 of them say no, but the last 2 say yes, where is the motivation? Where do you feel the most motivated? Was it in the 8 that said no to you, or was it in the 2 that said yes to you? You see, as soon as you accomplish a success, it will fuel you to be more motivated. And the fact is, motivation is not success. Success is motivation. So you actually have to achieve some success success to feel motivated to keep going. So if you go to the gym and you go to the gym for 2 weeks and you don't see any results, well, you could actually get unmotivated. But what you have to do when you go to the gym is you just got to go every single day until you see some results somewhere. And maybe it's losing 5 pounds, maybe it's being able to lift more weight, whatever it is. Once you see that success, that is going to give you the motivation. So don't get it backwards. Motivation is not success. Success is motivation. As soon as you get a little bit of success, it'll motivate you to do more. Then as you do more, you'll get more successes, and then it's a snowball effect. Now, I hope you enjoyed these 10 tips. They will help you out. You have to put them into play. Don't wait to feel motivated to do these things, okay? You got to just force yourself to do stuff that you don't feel comfortable doing, that you don't want to do, but that you know is right for you. If you do that, you'll find that motivation will find you, and you no longer have to search for motivation. 7 motivational success story of truly inspiring entrepreneurs. Hey, you want to be inspired? You want to be motivated? Do you feel like the underdog? Well, I've got 7 stories I want to share with you in this video that's probably going to motivate you to really get things done. So you're looking for motivation, you're looking for inspiration. Well, you come to the right place, okay? But before we do all that, I want you to look in the description below. I do have a course down there. It's a $97 course. You can get it absolutely free. You just click and learn. Also, don't forget, during this video, after this video, at some point, put a comment below. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know any questions you had, and maybe you have an inspirational story too. Don't forget, maybe you could share that with everybody else. You know, Charles Swindoll said that life is about 10% what happens to you, but 90% of how you react to it. Nothing could be more true than that. So what really are success stories? I think the best success stories are kind of the underdog who overcame all the obstacles. So if you think you've got obstacles in the way, they're probably just stepping stones to help you succeed. I know in the beginning when I started my company, I really didn't have any skills. I couldn't even send emails properly. I didn't know about, sending attachments or anything. I didn't do nothing. And I announced that I was going to start selling products online, and pretty much got laughed at because people thought, well, how are you going to do that? You don't have the skills, you don't have the talent to do those things. You just can't do it. But what those people forgot was online you can learn any skills and any talent. But that's not what this is about. I do have videos on that. What I want to talk about is how somebody with very little going for them could be really successful. So let's jump right into that. The first guy I want to tell you about is a guy named Howard Payne. Now, Howard Payne is the pioneer and starter of the electronic cigarette. Now, no matter what you think of electronic cigarettes, and I don't like them, I don't think they should be out there, but the guy was successful. He came up with an idea. He created a company called Logic. And I think that's a great name for a company that's really illogical, right? It's getting people to do something illogical, and that's like, fumes into their lungs. But he bought a disposable cig to the public. After selling Logic to Japan Tobacco, Payne's then launched a 3-minute per day ab product with Don Brown, the inventor of the ab roller. It gamifies your workouts with an app, and it's now revolutionizing the fitness industry around the world. However, 7 years ago, life for Payne was entirely different. He was $600,000 in debt, and he had a line of credit for his gym, which was totally tapped out. He had no money left. In fact, he was so bad off that the bank took his house in a short sale. Even worse, he went through one of those messy divorces, as if they aren't all messy, right? Imagine this for a moment. Before starting Logic, Payne was 42 years old. He was essentially broke and on the verge of bankruptcy at this point. In fact, in order to start Logic, he had to borrow $10,000 from his dad at the age of 42. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's a little embarrassing. It's one of the most famed rags to riches stories in America. Today, Payne collects hypercars. He's a fervent collector of McLarens, Porsches, Ferrari, Lamborghinis. He loves his muscle cars. He loves them all, and he has the means to keep collecting them because of his situation, how difficult it was. He tried that much harder. Let's check out another person. Here is a gentleman named Kent Clothier. He's someone who has an enormous amount of success. The funny thing that about Clothier is that he joined his father's 17-year-old grocery business, but not in a traditional sense. He decided he wanted to do something different. He wanted to do arbitrage on a wholesale level with massive truckloads. What does that mean exactly? Okay, that sounds pretty fancy. He would buy truckloads of grocery goods like coffee in one market and then turn around and sell those items into another market. But after doing that, traditionally for a while, he started to go directly to the wholesale buyers and ask them what they wanted. He created the demand first. Okay, so he went out there and figured out what these folks wanted. He then turned around and bought and sold exactly what they needed. Now this is called reverse wholesaling, where you actually set up the demand first and then supply the product. By the time he was 30 years old, he had already generated $2 billion in sales. Now he had a dispute with some of his business partners. He walked away from the business and he figured, hey, I've done this before, I can do it again. After 18 months of trying, his millions of dollars that he left with had dwindled down to $5,000. One late night he was watching TV and he saw one of those infomercials about wholesaling properties, buying and selling real estate, and that got him motivated. After just 30 days of studying the real estate market and how to buy and sell properties, he ended up with an $8,000 check in his hand. Now this paled in comparison to the money he made previously, but it also proved to him that he could also make money in this market. So once he did that, he realized he was on to something else, and he started a company called REWW, which is really reverse wholesaling of properties. He's since taught his system to thousands of people and made hundreds of millions of dollars. The next guy I want to talk about is Dean Graziosi. Now he's had a 15-year career as a real estate investor. He's an entrepreneur who has appeared in numerous late night infomercials. He's hung out with people like Richard Branson, Bill Clinton, and has generated hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. Now he had a tough childhood. He grew up as a dyslexic. His two parents, between the two of them, had a total of 9 marriages. Not a good parenting example. So he was one of those underdogs I'm talking about. But since then, he's written numerous books, been a New York Times bestseller, and generated hundreds of millions of dollars. Pretty good example from rags to riches. The next guy I want to talk about is Jason Fladlien. Now Jason Fladlien is a co-founder of a company called Rapid Crush. Rapid Crush is the world's #1 webinar training company. He's since generated over $100 million in webinars without even using his own product. He's coached numerous people on how to do webinars, including the famous Russell Brunson. He's traveled the world and trained people on his methods of conducting webinars. Now I just mentioned this guy, Russell Brunson. He is the founder and owner of ClickFunnels. Now I use that product for many years now. I now recommend Kartra, by the way. There's a link below, but ClickFunnels is a great company too. I remember when ClickFunnels first came on the market and it sounded like kind of a cool thing, and I signed up for it, but that company now is on its way to becoming a billion-dollar company. He initially started out selling instructions on how to make potato guns. That's right, potato guns. And he stumbled on this funnel method of upselling and cross-selling people and started a software company called ClickFunnels that helps you set up these funnels. Now if you are in digital marketing, internet marketing right now, and you've never heard of Russell Brunson, you have to have been living under a rock at this point, okay? Because he's made his name a household name in the internet marketing community. Next guy up, love this guy, been listening to it for years, Frank Kern. Frank Kern was brought up in a family with a stepfather that we'll say didn't like him much. He wasn't a success at school or anything like that, and he got into internet marketing. I've met Frank one-on-one. He's a very interesting person, very talented person, very funny guy, but he still has some other issues. He fights with social anxiety disorder every single day, where he's scared to be around crowds, he's scared to be around people, and that's what his job is, to be around people and be around crowds and talk to large groups of people. At one point the FTC came after him, totally shut him down, took everything he had, and he started over again and is even more successful to this date. Now at this point he's one of the most successful high-level coaches to 7, 8, 9-figure businesses. He's even taught Tony Robbins on how to market his products. Next guy up, Joe Polish. Joe Polish is a pretty amazing guy. He started a mastermind called the Genius Network. Now the Genius Network costs $25,000 just to join and listen to what they've got to say. He's also the founder and speaker on the podcast I Love Marketing, which is one of the most popular podcasts in America now. And where did he start? Where did he start out at? He was a carpet cleaner, going from home to home, cleaning carpets, but he learned some new skills. Now, all of these people started out without any skills. They all started out in less than ideal situations. So what I want to tell you is, if you have a tough situation that you're in now, you're probably more likely to be successful than somebody who's in a great situation. And here's why. Disgust is a great motivator. Okay, if you're angry about having to go to your job every day, if you're disgusted with where you live, what you're wearing, what you're driving, those are great motivators. I know before I started my company, I did work for a company, and the company was not that bad, but I didn't like my boss, and I just didn't want to listen to him anymore. And that was probably my biggest motivation, because I was making okay money. I could pay my bills, and I was getting by and all that, but I didn't like my boss, and that was a big motivator for me. I didn't like the fact that I couldn't spend my time the way I wanted. I was a single dad raising 2 kids, couldn't spend time with them. I couldn't go on the vacations I wanted, and I was just over it. I was going to do whatever it took to figure out how to make money online. And I started off selling cell phone cases and camping supplies and all these crazy things. I ended up building a survival food company, which has done very well, which I have today. That's been in existence for about 10 years now. And I will tell you, none of that would have happened if I had a really comfortable situation. If you're in a really comfortable situation, it's not real motivational. You don't really want to change it that much, because you think, well, maybe my situation could get worse. See, I knew that my situation as far as comfort could not get worse. I was uncomfortable where I was at. My money was okay, but I was uncomfortable. Matter of fact, I even told myself if I could make half the amount of money that I was making in that job, that I would be much happier. So if you're in a situation like that right now, if you're not motivated to go to your job, you probably are going to be motivated to start your own business. And if you do that, you could be wildly successful. You'll never know unless you try. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed some of the stories I shared with you. You can certainly do the same thing. All these people had tough situations. It doesn't matter what your situation is. You got to get that out of your head. You got to get out of your head. You got to look at what's around you. There's a lot of possibilities. 11 best motivational podcasts that will unleash your greatness. Hey, you need some motivation? You need some motivation in business or in health or whatever it is? I've got the video for you, and this is it. You'll want to stay to the very end, because if you wanted to be motivated, I'm going to share with you the podcast you can listen to. They don't cost you anything at all, and it'll help you out with that motivation. Hey, podcasts are cool, man. And the cool thing about podcasts is you can really focus in on what you want to learn. And that's what this video is about. So if you want the right podcast, get out your pen and paper. You need to start writing stuff down. The first one I'm going to tell you is called Start Yours by Oberlo. Oberlo is an awesome company. They have really good information. They have a really good blog, but they have a podcast called Start Yours. You can search that wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's Apple or Shopify or whatever. But Oberlo helps you start your business. Oberlo is actually a piece of software that connects AliExpress and Shopify, but they've really branched out and they're really trying to help the individual entrepreneur. So I would highly recommend that. Number 2 is the Gary V audio experience. Now, I like Gary V a lot. He's a hustler. He's done a lot. He's made a lot of money. I've heard him speak live in person before, and he's basically going to kick you in the butt. Okay, so if you need a kick in the butt, the Gary V audio experience, you want to search that wherever you listen to your podcast at, and you'll want to listen to Gary V. He's also got a YouTube channel, and you can watch some videos there. But this is great, like if you're driving down the road, you're commuting or whatever, and you want to get some motivation for business, Gary V's your guy. Number 3, under business, you want to search Entrepreneurs on Fire. Entrepreneurs on Fire. Great podcast. It brings in a lot of different people, a lot of different viewpoints, a lot of different stuff. So I would highly recommend you checking that out. Now, all 3 of those are really business related, but if you're into personal growth, I've got a whole bunch of podcasts I'm going to recommend to you right now that I think you need to check out. The very first one is called School of Greatness. So go to wherever you listen to your podcast, type in School of Greatness, and I think you're going to be very happy with that one. Next one, they've been around for a long time, is the Mind Valley podcast. The Mind Valley podcast. I really like Mind Valley. They have a lot of good information, a lot of good content. And like I say, wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it be Apple or Spotify, you will find the Mind Valley podcast. Do you want to make the most of your day? Well, then search the Optimal Daily Podcast. Optimal Daily Podcast. It'll help you make the best of your day, use up your time wisely, and feel good at the end of the day. Little word about your attitude. Check this one out. It's called the Happier Podcast. The Happier Podcast. You want to check that out? You want to get your emotions up a little bit, feel a little bit better? That's a great podcast. And once again, you'll find it on all the major platforms. All right, so the next two I'm going to give you have to do with money. Years ago, I'm going to say in the late 90s, I was traveling on the road and I was doing training for automotive dealerships. And I had my own business, and I was in Nashville. And when I was in Nashville, I started listening to this local guy, and this local guy was talking about money and how to watch your money and how to invest your money and how to pay off your debt and everything. And the guy's name was Dave Ramsey. You may have heard of him now. He has a show on CNN, but he's got the Dave Ramsey podcast. So if you want to get control of your money, you want to quit spending so much, you want to pay off your debts, you want to get financially stable, I would highly recommend the Dave Ramsey show. He's blown up and he's nationwide now, and good for him, right? I know recently somebody made fun of him. They said, you're talking about how to spend your money, but you live in this mansion that's worth millions of dollars. And his reply was, I can afford it. So if you can afford it, it's okay. It's when you can't afford it, right? When you're driving the car that the payments are too much or the house is too much, that's the problem. And Dave Ramsey will help you navigate all that stuff. I highly recommend his podcast. And the next one that is financially oriented is called So Money, S-O Money. You'll want to look for them on wherever you listen to your podcast, So Money, and I think you're going to find that's going to be very helpful to you. Now, one thing's for sure, to be motivated, you got to be healthy. You got to be healthy. I rarely see somebody that's sick and feeling terrible and they're super motivated. That's rare to happen. And I think that's one thing that entrepreneurs forget about. They think it's all about the hustle and it's all about the work and it's all about putting in more hours. It's all about doing more and sleeping less. And that's just not true. The truth is you got to be healthy. You got to exercise. You got to have the right body weight. You got to have all these things going for you or you don't feel motivated. That's enough to drag you down. So when we get to the health and fitness thing, the first one I'm going to tell you to look at is Hurdle. Hurdle. Check out Hurdle, and I think you get a lot out of it. It's going to go over a lot of nutrition, a lot of health things, a lot of exercise things, but check out Hurdle. And if you really want to focus in, and we're trying to do this ourselves on nutrition, go to a podcast called Nutrition Matters. Nutrition Matters. And it does, if you think about it. If you put crappy fuel and crappy oil in your car, it's not going to run well. I remember I was in Mexico many years ago, and I got some fuel at a gas station, and it had a little bit of water in it, and that car didn't drive too well, okay? The car was spitting and sputtering because it didn't have the right fuel. And your body and your mind is the same way. If you don't feed it properly, especially your body, if you don't feed it properly, you're not going to do well. If you don't have enough sleep, if you don't have enough exercise, and exercise matters because what your body does is it always tries to adjust down, okay? And what I mean by that is if you only get out of a chair 3 times a day, when you do get out of a chair, it's going to be really difficult because your body adjusted down. However, if you go to the gym and you do 200 squats, getting out of your chair is not going to be an issue. It's not going to be an issue for you because you've done that over and over at the gym. So you want to exercise past the point that you would normally need your body to do things during the day. Does that make sense? I think it does. In other words, you've got to force your body to do things that it doesn't feel like doing. It's hard to do. I get it. It's very hard to do. But you got to force your body. Otherwise, it's going to adjust down, and it's going to keep adjusting down to where you can do very little. I see that a lot nowadays. Even young people in their 30s and 40s that are obese, they're out of weight, and they can't run, they can't get up steps, they can't do stuff because they've just eaten a lot of food and they haven't really exercised. So I highly recommend, if you don't have an exercise regimen, get one and listen to Nutrition Matters. So I've given you a whole list of these podcasts right now, but there's more out there. There's more that you could listen to. Now, where can you find them? If you're not listening to podcasts, you may be asking yourself, well, where do I find them? You can find them at Apple Podcasts. You can find them at Apple Podcasts. You can also find them at Spotify Podcast. There's also Google Podcasts that you can go to. There's also Stitcher Podcasts that you can go to. There's also iHeart Podcasts that you can go to. Now, like I said, these aren't exhaustive of all motivational podcasts. There's probably some great ones out there. I don't know about it, but I would recommend all these. These are all really, really good. And you've got to think about it this way. When you feed your body the right foods, you feel better, right? When you feed your mind the right thoughts, you're going to think better. That's how it works. So I think it's really important. People say, well, I went to a motivational class once and it really didn't work. Well, it's not something, you don't eat once and for all either. You've got to constantly eat. You got to constantly feed your body. You got to constantly feed your mind. And as you constantly feed your mind, you're going to find that you're going to want to do more things. You're going to want to create more. You're going to want to work more. You're going to want to be with your family more. All these things will grow out of motivating your mind. And the best way to motivate your mind is put positive things in. If you're constantly watching the news, which is the worst thing in the world you can do, or you're around a lot of negative people all day long and you never get any positive input, you're eventually not going to do very well, because you need this input, guys. You need this feedback of other human beings. Somebody who is a loner normally doesn't do very well. It's so funny in the news, anytime you hear something horrendous that happens, all the neighbor says, well, he really kept to himself and he was pretty much a loner. That's probably not good for you. Now, all of us, without exception, get demotivated at times. I do. You probably do. So don't feel bad if you get demotivated. Don't feel bad if you're down for a day. Do something about it. Listen to something positive. Change your scenery. And I don't just mean your physical scenery, I mean your mental scenery. What is your mental scenery? Whatever you're thinking about is what you're going to become. Whatever you concentrate on is what you'll achieve. And if you're not thinking the right things, you're all wrapped up in politics and all these world event things that are problems. And keep in mind, the news is always a problem. That's why it's the news, okay? It's always a problem. They don't tell you how great things are going, or you'd turn off the news. You're like, well, I don't want to hear that, right? That's not why people just listen to the news. They listen to the news to hear all the bad things that are happening in the world and to get scared, because that's the other thing the news does, is they try to scare you. So I think it's best, you could certainly listen to the news. I have a friend who's a plastic surgeon, and he hasn't listened to the news for over 25 years. And if you asked him something that was current event, he couldn't tell you, because he doesn't care. He says it's all negative. I don't want to hear about it. And he's like one of the most positive, happy people I've ever seen. So think about what you're putting in your mind, and change what you're putting in your mind, and change with one of these podcasts or one of your choice if this isn't for you, but at least go through and check these out. I think you'll like them. How to stay motivated working for yourself. Are you feeling down? You kind of don't feel too excited about working today? You thought that you start your own business and you'd wake up and you'd be motivated every day. But it didn't happen that way, did it? Motivation. This is one of the things that I think more and more people have a problem with. We all know that working from home can be great. We don't have that commute. Maybe we can sleep in a little bit longer. There's all kinds of little advantages. Eat lunch at home, save some money. But what happens to motivation? Motivation at home is, I think, harder to muster up than it is on a job, because on a job you've got people who expect things out of you. When you work for yourself, there's nobody that expects anything out of you. I mean, I could literally get up and watch TV all day and nothing goes wrong, okay, because we have an income now. That's pretty cool. To get myself motivated to do more things, to create more, to make this video you're watching right now, I use a few tricks and I want to share them with you in this particular video. Now, the first thing is, I would say, get up. Now you say, well, I get up every day, JR. No, I mean, get up at a decent hour. Don't sleep into 9 or 10 o'clock. You're not going to get as much accomplished, and a job wouldn't allow you to do that. If you're working for yourself and you're sleeping into 9, 10 o'clock, you are actually cheating yourself, is what you're doing. Next thing I would say is get ready for your work day. I don't mean you got to put a dress on or you got to put a tie on, but you do got to change clothes. You got to put on clothes so that you feel like you're up and ready to make things happen. You're cheating yourself if you don't do that. It's easy to sit in your underwear all day long and not shave and not shower and do any of that. Nobody's going to know, but you will. Psychologically, that has an effect on you. Whether you want to believe that or not, it has a huge effect on you. If you don't go to work every day, whether it's in your office and or your couch or wherever you're working, prepared and looking good, then that's going to have a psychological effect. If you are working on the couch and you go, oh my God, somebody's at the door, I got to put some clothes on, that's a bad thing, okay? Because you wouldn't do that at a job. So why are you doing that to yourself at home? You're actually cheating yourself, and it has a huge psychological effect on you, whether you realize it or not. Next thing I'm going to tell you is designate a zone for your work. Your work should be done in a place that's comfortable. Now I have a desk set up here in my office, good lighting and all that. I don't work here, okay? I don't work here. I normally work out of a Starbucks before the pandemic, or I would work sitting on the couch, but that was my designated area to work, and I knew that, you know, I had everything turned off. There's no TV in the background, no radio playing, nothing. I'm there to work, and you need to do the same thing. Try the Pomodoro technique. What's the Pomodoro technique? And I'm going to put a link to a free timer you can use, but the Pomodoro link is you set a set amount of time to work and then you take a break. The next thing that can cause burnout and lack of motivation is, especially, you know, when you have your own business, the work never ends. I mean, literally it never ends. And what I mean by that is I can finish one task, but there's always 2 or 3 more that need to get started and more that get added to that. So it's just infinity of work. Okay. And if you treat it like that, if you go, oh my God, I got to work from 6 a.m. to midnight every single day, and you never take breaks, you're just going to burn yourself out. You can't do that. You want to use the timer. I'm going to put it on the screen here. You want to use that timer and work for 25 minutes and then take a short break, take a 5-minute break, go outside, walk around your house, you know, call a friend, you know, check some of your personal stuff. The problem is too many people check their personal stuff for 25 minutes and then work for 5 minutes. That won't work. Okay, so do allow yourself to have that free time, but understand that you need to take breaks. Take advantage of virtual tools and apps. If you're working from home by yourself all the time, it can be very isolating. So I also want to suggest you use things like Zoom or Skype and have a call with a friend every now and then, and, you know, get together with them. And maybe a business friend. I have one tomorrow, as a matter of fact, with a business friend. Been on a lot of trips with him and been to some of his masterminds, and I'm gonna sit down and just talk to him about what's going on in his life, what's going on in his business, and he'll ask me about mine, and we'll just touch base. And that's kind of energizing to see what other people are doing, and it helps him because he works alone. It helps me because I work alone, and you're having that interaction. You can use a Skype and see each other and really just kind of catch up. Do that every now and then too. The next one I don't always adhere to, but I'm going to tell you to do this one, and that's have a strict cutoff time. In other words, don't work until you go to bed and get up as soon as you get up, start work and then go to bed, and it's a bad cycle. So you want to say, hey, I'm going to quit at 6 o'clock this evening, or I'm going to quit at 8 o'clock or something like that. And I don't have a really strict cutoff time, but I would say after 7:30, 8 o'clock, I normally won't work anymore after that time. Now, I'm not saying I haven't, or I'm not saying I won't in the future, but for the most part I say that's it. I'm done for the day, because I start at like 7:30 in the morning, but I work till 7:30 at night, and I take some breaks in between there too. Some of my breaks may be a workout, maybe a bike ride, it may be some type of floor exercises or something, but I do take the breaks in there. So I'm not working 12 hours every day, but I've done it when I had a project. I have done that. And I'll probably do it in the future some too. It's not hard work, guys. If you're working online, quit telling yourselves, oh, it's so exhausting, oh, it's so hard. It is not. It is not. Okay, hard is being a roofer in 100-degree weather. That's hard. Okay, that's hard work. Pouring cement or pouring a blacktop tar on a street, that's hard work. That's exhausting. Typing and talking, it's not exhausting. It may be a little mentally fatiguing, but you can't be physically exhausted. As a matter of fact, I would suggest that you do some physical activity during the day, because you ain't getting any. Okay, if you're sitting in your chair and you're typing and talking, your body's gonna deteriorate. You have to exercise. That's one of the biggest things that will keep your mental attitude up. You won't feel like exercising. Okay, don't say, well, I'm not motivated to exercise. I know that. Nobody's motivated to exercise. I guess there's a few crazy people out there. My son is big and working out, and he loves doing it, but for the most part you won't feel like doing it, but you need to do it. You need to do a lot of things you don't feel like. Okay, you may not feel like brushing your teeth every day, but it's the right thing to do, so you brush your teeth. Just like exercise, you got to do it. The next big thing I'll tell you is to close the door on work. Now I mean this figuratively, and I mean it mentally too. So if you can set up an office where you can literally close your door to the rest of the house if there are distractions. Now if there's nobody else in the house and nobody's bothering you, you don't have to shut your door, okay? There's no need for that. But if there's, you know, kids out there, or the dogs are running around, or people are interrupting you, try to shut off from that. Now the second thing I'm going to tell you is shut off mentally your work. And what I mean is, when you're doing something else, enjoy it. You know, if you're going out to lunch, you know, with your significant other, or you're, you know, at the beach, or, you know, you're going to a movie when we're allowed to go to movies again, make sure you're not sitting there talking about work. Okay, enjoy that moment. And when you're at work, shut off your personal life. Okay, don't be thinking about the problems with the kids and the dog and the house and what you got to do outside. If you're working, you should be just working. The problem is people keep shifting their mind back and forth. They're like, I'm at work, but I'm concerned about what I should be doing at home, or, you know, with the kids, or the repair I got to do in the yard. And then when you're out there in the yard, you're thinking, oh my God, I'm out here fixing this thing in the yard, but I should be in there writing that blog. I should be shooting that video. You can't do it. It's exhausting. That's what's exhausting to you. You need to be vested in the moment that's going on right now. That's what really counts. I told you I was going to share a story with you that made me really unmotivated, but it really helped me. When I first started my company, and I got going, I'm gonna say, you know, I went through all my iterations of different products, and I got to survival food, and I had made enough money to where I could quit my job, and I was selling somebody else's brand of survival food, and I got a warehouse, and all this was fine. And then all of a sudden they quit delivering the food. They quit. I lost my eBay account. They took money out of my account. They shut down all of my listings on eBay, and I was essentially out of business. Okay, that is very devastating. Okay, once you quit your job. So the reason I wanted to share that with you is because at that moment I had some choices. I could go back to my job, and I probably could have gotten a job back there again, or I could just move forward and try to figure it out. And that's what I'm gonna tell you need to do. You need to move forward and try to figure it out. And it may seem like it's just totally impossible. You know, what do you do? Like, you know, in my situation, I had a product I was selling. It was selling well. People liked it. I was making money on it, and all of a sudden it went away. So what do you do? In my case, I actually came up with a competing product to the one I was selling, and I've been selling that product ever since we started. And it was difficult because I would show up to the office and I really had nothing to do. Okay, what do you do all day in this office? And I had rented a small warehouse. I had to literally write down things I could do to grow a business. I had to literally go out and look at other people's businesses and see what they were doing, copy some of their ideas. I had to get my products on other people's websites so that I could get some sales, because I didn't have enough traffic to mine. So what I'll tell you is, if you're working for yourself, you're going to have these bad things happen. I've had a bunch of them along the way. You know, I could sit here and do a 2-hour long video on problems we've had in the survival food business, but I won't do that. The point is, you're going to have them. Whereas on a job, if you're working for somebody else, if a problem arises and there's a problem with the product or the company or the advertising, it's their problem. It's not yours. You just do your job. You know, if you're sales, you do sales. If you're accounting, you do accounting. And the company has problems, you know, don't worry about it. The problem with that is, you may think you don't have the responsibilities like owning your own company, but you also don't have the security. Years ago, I guess just during the factory days, people literally could get a job at a company, and, you know, they could move up through the company, and they could be assured that they would have, you know, a retirement, and their job was secure. That's not the case now. It's not the case. Anybody's job can go away. Anybody's. I don't care who you are expendable. A lot of people say, oh man, they couldn't live without me at my job. You have no idea. I'm so important to that company. You're not. I'm going to tell you, you're not. I don't care how good you are. You're not. If things change where your job is not as important, or if sales go down and that business goes out of business, you're out. You're done. Okay. I had an old man when I was much younger, and I was in the automotive business, and I was a finance manager, and I was really good at it, and I was making a lot of money, and I was making the company money. And I was telling him one day what a great job I was doing, and he listened and he listened. He was nodding his head. His name was Bill Lewin, and he says, son, let me tell you something. Take your fist and put it in a bucket of water, and when you pull your fist out, as long as it takes for that hole to fill up is how quickly they will fill your job. Don't get cocky. And that kind of stuck with me. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not so great. And I'm not saying you're not great at your job, or you're not wonderful, or they don't need you, or they don't, you know, feel loyal to you or any of that. But believe me, it's not secure. believe me, it's not secure. You are not the type of person, no matter who you are, that they can't replace. Everybody can be replaced. Every single human can be replaced. Don't believe you can't. And everything's temporary. I will tell you that. Don't think that because things are great and you're making money at this company that it's going to be that way forever, because it may not. I've seen businesses grow and I've seen businesses fail, and we've all seen that in the past years. It's been very tumultuous in the business environment. So working for yourself is great. You gotta use these things I'm telling you in this video to stay motivated and to get production and to make things happen, but you can. And the cool thing about it is when you work for yourself, you have things you can do. There's always something you can do to improve the situation. Always something. If you look hard enough, there's always something you can do to improve what you're doing. I'm trying to improve our income base by doing videos on YouTube. Okay, I don't have to do videos on YouTube. I could live off my survival food and some other stuff I was doing, but I really want to do this because I know that's another asset that will bring me money in the future. It's a long-term investment. If you're planning on doing videos and making some money in a couple months, don't do it. It's not going to happen. You have to do it for months or maybe even years before you see any return. But once you get it, it's an ongoing asset that's going to pay you. So that's another cool thing to remember. A lot of the things you're working on as an entrepreneur, you don't see results in a day or a month. You know, when I started selling cell phone cases, I had no idea I'd be selling food and courses and, you know, coaching and doing videos on YouTube. I had no idea. I just along the way came across these things, and you will too if you show up and you go to work. I really appreciate you watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe below. Don't forget, ring the bell, turn on all notifications so that I can let you know each time I do a video or I do a live. That's really, really important that you do that. And put your comments below. What'd you think of this video? Did you learn something out of it? Did you get motivated by it? Did you not get motivated? Give me a thumbs up too. I would really appreciate that. Put your questions down there, even if it's unrelated to this subject. As long as it has to do with selling online, I'll be happy to answer that for you. Thank you so much. And oh yeah, there's a course down there you can get. It's a $97 course. You can get it absolutely free if you click the link for a limited time down there. Get that, get Kartra, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey, thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click that little bell right there so you can be notified every time I do a new video. Also, click on one of those videos there. Keep watching on my channel.